How do? My name is Andrew Hancock and I am a VMware technical architect from Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. I have worked with VMware since their birth in 1998, so that has been over 24 years I have been working with the VMware product catalogue. Some of my close colleagues say if you cut Andy in half, it reads VMware like a stick of rock from Blackpool. I have now written 134 articles and recorded 30 hours of VMware vSphere videos for Experts Exchange and received 40 Experts Exchange awards over the last 10 years working with the Experts Exchange community. I am currently the overall #1 point earner in the Hall of Fame at Experts Exchange. I am honoured to have been accepted into the VMware vExpert program since 2011 and more recently made a VMware vExpert Pro for the last 3 years. And welcome back to another VMware's Hancock's Half Hour. And in this session today, I'm going to show you how to install VMware tools for Windows on a VMware Windows virtual machine. I'm actually going to do it on 2 virtual machines, and if you've been following this series, we've created a Windows 11 and we've created a Windows Server 2022 in our lab. And if I just select our VMware vCenter server interface and we have a little look at the inventory, and just before I started this video, again I noticed a high CPU exhaustion alert on VMware vCenter Server 8, which for me in this lab, and I have actually seen out in the wild, is completely normal when you actually turn on VMware vCenter Server initially. You'll get a CPU spike and you'll get a warning. And we also had the same on Windows Server 2022 and Windows 11. I'm just going to have a little look at what that alert is. Okay, so it's actually warning us that we've got CPU usage. I suspect that's because, again, it's just been turned on. That will settle down later. So I'm just going to say acknowledge that. And I'm just going to, okay. Obviously, at the moment, we've got a high CPU usage on the host as well, because I've just powered on Windows 11 and Windows Server 22. So again, this particular host is possibly struggling a little bit, but we'll see how we go. So this tutorial is all about how to install VMware tools. I have previously written a video and an article for ESXi 7. So this video is going to follow very much similar to what I've showed you previously, but I'm going to do a couple of different things. I'm going to sort of kind of mention about the VMX Net 3 interface and the E1000 interface. We're going to have a little look at that. We're going to delve into that. And I must just mention that VMware tools is not optional. It should be installed on all your virtual machines. And in later videos, I'm going to show you how to install Ubuntu 2004 and 2204. And we're going to install VMware tools on those platforms, on those distributions. And in the Linux world, then there's something called Open VMware tools as well. So I'll show you how to do that in a later video. But today we're going to concentrate with good old Windows. And in the countdown to Christmas, I thought I'd wear my VMware hat. Now, I did promise you that I might actually do the Advent of Christmas, and I might do one a day, and I know that this is the 3rd of December. I've just been too busy really to commit to try and get a video out every single day. So this is the first one of December, 22 days to go before Christmas. My VMware hat. So season greetings to you, and if you don't celebrate Christmas, then happy holidays. And I'm just going to have a little swig of Pepsi Max. Now, some people have actually basically turned around and sort of kind of suggested to me that depending upon whether or not you drink Coca-Cola or depending on whether you drink Pepsi Max, and obviously this is possibly for my American viewers, it seems to suggest what political party that you follow or you've joined or something or other. I make no reference to what political parties that I support. I'm not political. I just drink Pepsi Max because I prefer Pepsi Max to Coca-Cola. So I thought I'd just get that out of the way, because I honestly don't understand why red and blue in a particular product like a soft drink really actually basically, but maybe that's I digress, and maybe that's an American thing for people over the pond. But again, I have no political allegiances with either party. I just drink the stuff because I like Pepsi Max. Okay, so installing VMware tools. So if we actually, first of all, we need to log in to our guest OS. So I'm going to basically click launch the web console, and that's going to show me a lovely interface. And I'm just going to click send Control Alt Delete. And of course, those passwords that I remember. Now you can see actually that this is a little bit sluggish. So it's possible maybe that our host is maybe struggling and it's overcommitted at the moment. We will see how we get on here. So VMware Tools is actually an ISO, which is actually incorporated into the ESXi layout. I was going to say operating system. It's not really embedded in the operating system, but if you do actually browse the ESXi file system, you will find a particular folder called VM Images, and in VM Images, unless it's changed, but in VM Images, you will actually basically find a Windows ISO and a Linux ISO, and if you open those ISOs up, then you will see the installers to install VMware Tools. So all the VMware Tools option does, and we'll go back to our vCenter interface, and obviously we've got our lovely honey colored banner at the top here. So I'm just going to big X at that. So it's already telling us that the VMware Tools is not installed in this machine, and we can click Actions over here, or we could click Actions followed by Guest OS followed by Install VMware Tools. So those two options do the same thing. So on this particular virtual machine, I'm just going to click Action, and I'm going to click Install VMware Tools. And this is where the magic happens, in the CD-ROM in the virtual machine. So make sure if you want to install VMware Tools from vCenter server or from the ESXi host, that you do actually have a CD-ROM device in the virtual machine. If you don't have a CD-ROM device in the virtual machine, you will not be able to mount the ISO image. So all that's being done is the CD-ROM device in the virtual machine. You're giving it a mount instruction to mount the Windows ISO in the guest VM. So if we click mount, if we go back to our Windows 11 machine, sometimes we will see Windows 11 will detect the CD-ROM, and it will basically pop up a little banner here asking you what you want to do with it. But if you don't want to wait for that, if you basically browse, okay, so autoplay's kicked in, and it has actually basically picked up, and so we can select run from there, but I was a bit slow, or we can browse the DVD and we can click the setup, or we can click setup 64. If you know that it's a 64-bit operating system, then you can just click setup 64. Setup just changed setup 64. So if I just click setup, it's a bit sluggish. Okay, yes, we want to make changes. Now, whilst that's having a little think about doing that, whilst we wait for basically the prompt to actually continue and click next, I'm just actually going to use this time to go off and actually show you, and I'll put this the URL in the description. Now, obviously ESXi tools are minted or baked into the ESXi operating system. So at the moment, we're running ESXi 8. There have been no updates, but VMware Tools does have security issues, does have bugs, does occasionally have memory leak issues. Again, it's just a piece of software that's installed in your virtual machine. So you know that can affect the whole security of your virtual machine. So VMware do release alongside and publish VMware tools in what is packages.vmware.com. And if we have a little look here, the latest is 12.1.5 that was published on the 29th November 2022. Well, the ESXi 8 came out in October the 11th. So therefore, the VMware tools already in that are out of date. So if you do have strict cybersecurity essentials requirements or cyber insurance requirements, or you are, as part of your regular patching of your operating systems, then you may also basically want, at that time whilst you're patching operating systems, also maybe update your versions of VMware tools as well. If the information about VMware tools does actually indicate that there is a particular security issue that they've actually basically found in the wild. So you can actually basically go here and you can click the folder, and obviously at the moment they've only obviously released 12.1.5 for Windows, and click Windows, and you can actually basically find the tools there to download. So it's just an EXE. And you can use Active Directory or many different methods to actually basically push out that to your virtual machines to install. So let's just go back to our Windows 11. So I just thought I'd kind of quickly show you that you can obtain later versions of VMware tools. They don't have to be baked into your OS. I have also seen as well now that Windows updates are now carrying updates for VMware tools as well. Certainly in the drivers, I've seen latest driver updates being addressed in Windows updates as well. If you're using a patch product example, Ivanti Endpoint Security, Ivanti Endpoint Security in its all patches option, where it patches applications within the operating system like Chrome, Notepad++, will also basically update VMware tools as well for you if you use an all patches option. So let's go back to Windows 11, and here we go. Welcome to the installation wizard for VMware tools, and basically we're just going to click next. Let's have a little look at a custom option. Normally I would just say let's just go typical or let's just go complete, but let's just have a little look at the custom option and see what options we've actually got. So you can see here the VMX Net3 NIC driver, parallel virtually SCSI driver, the memory controller driver, the VGA driver, video driver, PS2 mouse driver. And this is the reason really why VMware tools is not optional, because we need those drivers to have better control of the guest OS within VMware. So we're just going to click next, and I'm going to click install. Now I may have touched on this previously. We're going to wait for that to install because that is probably going to require a restart. So I'm going to go back here to our Windows 11 virtual machine, and I'm going to have a little look at actions, and we're going to look at settings here. And let's have a little look at the network interface that I want to discuss for the moment. So currently the interface is using the E1000E, and as I suggested in a previous video, if you've been following these, there is no VMX Net3 driver currently baked into the installation media for Windows operating systems, not at present. Windows updates do come out for the VMX Net3 driver. So if we need to install Windows 11 or any Windows-based operating system, if we want to enable networking, then we have to include an interface. And the interface is the E1000E interface, which is sort of kind of, it's an emulated driver, I suppose you could call it, or an emulated piece of hardware. It's not fully virtualized, and it should not really be used in production. Many questions are asked on Experts Exchange that come up with networking issues with particular virtual machines. and often the cause is because they're not using the VMX NetTree driver. Now, to use the VMX NetTree driver, you must have VMware Tools installed. If you don't have VMware Tools installed that contains the driver, you will get a missing hardware exclamation mark in your device manager. So what we're going to do, we're going to restart. We're going to restart the host. We're going to restart the host. We're going to restart the guest after it's actually completed installing all these drivers. And then what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to remove the E1000 interface, and I'm going to add a VMX NetTree driver. Now, the VMX NetTree driver or interface also supports 10 gig. The E1000E interface, which is sort of kind of emulated, is only a 1 gig interface. So you can see here already in Windows 11 that it's actually basically turned around telling us that it's updated the VM mouse and requires a system restart. So we're going to do a system restart as well. So again, you know, if you are okay, so I'm just going to basically click finish, and it's going to ask me for a restart, and I'm going to say yes, please restart me, and that's actually going to start to restart. So please, first of all, make sure that you install VMware Tools for Windows on all your Windows operating systems as part of your initial installation. When you create your golden masters, if you're not using golden masters and you're not using templates, then please do get into the habit that once you've actually installed Windows 11, then take some time and install VMware Tools. Secondly, you will have an E1000 interface because that's used to complete the networking portions of Windows. Once you've installed VMware Tools, then remove the interface and add a VMX Net3 interface. And I'm going to show you that. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to disappear because obviously some Windows 11 updates have got in the way here as well. So it's applying them Windows updates on shutdown and restart here. And we could be here waiting all day for that. So I'm just going to disappear. And we'll speed this up in post, and I will come back shortly. Okay, I'm back. Okay, one of the things I actually wanted to show you, so VMware Tools has now been installed correctly. But one of the things I actually wanted to show you is this VMX Net interface and the E1000 interface. So you can see here, this is the E1000E interface that's currently installed based on an Intel 82574L chipset, etc. And you may also notice that I'm actually basically using the older type interface with the Windows 11. I'm just not really fussed by the new GUI at all, I'm afraid. So this is the E1000E interface, which is currently installed in the machine. And if we look at properties for that interface, again, this machine is just looking a bit slow. Okay, it was status. If we look at the status of that machine, then we can actually basically clearly see here that it's a 1 gig interface. So that's the E1000E. And as I've actually suggested, yes, use it for installation because the VMFX Net3 driver is not baked into the media. But once you've installed VMware Tools, rip it out and replace it with a new interface. Now, when you add, it's not a replacement, so we are removing Ethernet 0. We're going to add another interface. That new interface is going to have a different MAC address, so it's going to get a different IP address. So don't spend time when you're setting your VMware VMs up putting in all your lovely little details on that, because you're going to remove it. And I'm going to show you now how we do this. Now, this can be done plug and play with the machine on. Machine doesn't have to be powered off, because interfaces, one of the plug and play devices in a virtual machine, like a hard disk, is a network interface. So I'm just going to go to my powered up virtual machine, and I'm going to click edit settings. I'm going to click add new device. Now I'm actually going to add a new device, so we've got two NICs in the machine, so you can actually see them both at the same time. And then I'm going to go back again. I'm going to remove it. So we want to create a network adapter. Now, obviously, bear in mind that you're going to have to go to the adapter type and select VMX-Net3. Okay, connect it, power on, and also make sure that you've actually got it set to the right network as well. Now, at the moment, we've only got one virtual machine port group in this host, which is called VM network, which is the default network. And in a later video, we'll start looking at virtual switches and distributed switches and different port groups and VLANs, etc. But for the moment, we've only got one network, which is VM network. Connect it, power on, obviously, and the MAC address is going to be generated automatically after it's been added. You can see this is the MAC address currently, 910862. So I'm going to click OK. Now, if I go back to the virtual machine, now it's completely normal at that point, whilst you're using the web client console, for it to be disconnected, because the machine's actually got a different IP address. So don't worry about that too much. You may also notice as well that it's also telling us that the VMware Tools is running. It actually tells us the version 12.2.94, which is current. Tells us an installation type as MSI. That could actually say managed by host if you're using Open VMware Tools. So now that that's done a refresh, we've got a DNS name appear, and we've got two IP addresses appear, 182.111 and 182.106, because there's two network interfaces. And that information there, DNS and IP address, will only be given to you if you've got VMware Tools installed and running. And the same here as well. You'll only actually see this running if VMware Tools is installed. So I'm going to just click the launch the web console again. We're going to connect. So can you see here now we've got an Ethernet 1, we've got an Ethernet 0. This is the interface that we were looking at. And if you can see here that this is the VMX-Net3 Ethernet adapter. And if I click the status on this, and you can see that this is 10 gig. So just for shits and giggles, and I do apologize if that's offensive, by the way. I was having a discussion with a service provider last week, and I was very polite, and I mentioned the term shits and giggles, and they turned around and said it was offensive, and they terminated the call. So I apologize if you find that offensive. So I'm just going to ping Google's DNS server 8.8.8.8, which is far away from the LAN here, to actually basically show you that there is some network connectivity going on. The network connectivity is going beyond this LAN onto our other LAN, onto our router, through our firewalls, and out to the internet, and it's pinging away quite happily. So I'm just going to show you now. Now, you could sort of kind of do this in two ways, really. Normally, I just rip and replace, or add and rip. If you wanted to be a little bit more sort of kind of, change control like, you could just right click the existing interface and say disable. So that interface now is disabled, and we would expect traffic to carry on depending on which interface is actually using. But you didn't see there at all any timeout when we actually basically drop that. So that interface is now disabled. No traffic is actually going out through that interface. Oh, I enabled it then, did I? Yeah, it's just gone a bit like treacle again. So if we look at the status and we look at the details, then it's given us an IP as 182.106. So let's just disable that again. Yeah, okay. So I suspect traffic is actually going out the other interface. at the moment. Okay, so we've disabled Ethernet 0, which is our E1000 interface. So now we go back into our Windows 11 machine. Now, you need to be a little bit cautious about what interface you're going to remove. And if we just look at our other interface here, then you can see that the MAC addresses are obviously different. 910862, 9115AA. And all I'm going to do now is to try to say remove device, followed by OK. OK, hot plug, remove, hot plug, add. The IP address has been reflected accordingly here, 192.168.182.111. Our DNS name, VMware Tools is still running, and we're still pinging. And maybe I need to refresh because, oh, when I do a refresh, then the only adapter which is actually left, networking interface adapter which is left, is the Ethernet 1 VMX Net 3 Ethernet adapter. And if we just check the status, we can see that that is the 10 gigabit Ethernet adapter. If we actually look at the properties of this particular device and do a little bit of deep dive on it, you will start to see, if you click configure and you have a little look at advanced, you get a lot more specific functions that this highly virtualized driver supports that you don't get on the E1000 interface. So we've correctly installed VMware Tools on a Windows 11 host, Windows 11 guest, and we've replaced the network interface adapter, and we've removed the E1000 adapter, and we've added a VMFX Net 3 adapter. Or in this particular case, we added a second interface, disabled the first interface, and then we removed the interface. So that's our Windows 11 guest done. So now we can actually power it off, and we can use the function shutdown guest OS, which actually signals the guest OS to shut down cleanly. These two options are not here if you don't have VMware Tools installed. If you use the power off, then that is just a cold power off. That's just to hold the button down on the front of the server so it doesn't power off the server cleanly. And the reset is a bit like those old workstations that have got a reset button on the front. You can just go up and you just press reset. So you basically just get a cold reset. So I'm just going to say shut down guest OS. The only reason I'm doing shutdown guest OS is because I think that our particular host here is actually struggling in the lab, and I want Windows Server 2022 to be a little bit more responsive. So here we go. Here's our Windows Server 2022 in the lab, and I'm going to click. You can, at the moment it says VMware Tools is not installed. I'm going to quickly launch existing connections. So I'm just going to log into this host using the local administrator account, so we can install VMware Tools in exactly the same way. I'm going to do a little bit differently this time. I'm going to click Actions, and I'm going to click Guest OS, and I'm going to click Install VMware Tools, and I'm going to click Mount. So go back here, get rid of that interface. Okay, one of the things I wanted to draw your attention to on this particular virtual machine is that I've just added a virtual machine network interface, a second one, which is based on the VMX Net 3 interface, expecting to see a missing driver information for here. And clearly you can see that this device is enabled and it's working correctly. And if we go back here and have a little look, installation is in progress at the moment, so we don't have a DNS name, we don't have any IP addresses. But if I just use my lovely control panel and we have a little look at the network tasks, and we can see we've got Ethernet 0 and we've got Ethernet 1. And here again, you can see that we've got the VMFX Net 3 interface. So it looks now like, and I did wonder this, I did ponder over this the other day, that if the vMXnet3 interface driver is being provided in Windows updates, is the vMXnet3 interface now baked into the installation media? And then that begs the question, if it is baked into the installation media, why isn't the template been updated to reflect that? I'm just going to show you a particular article by a good friend and fellow vExpert Pro, Colin Westwater, on his blog. And you can actually basically read about it here at vgembar.net, whereby he's obviously done the research here and he's done a little bit of work around this. And it does actually show, I think somewhere he turns around and says in March 2022, yeah, testing Windows Server 2000. So it does look like from March 2022, Windows Server 2022 does actually include the vMFXnet3 driver baked into the installation media. Not applicable for 2016, 2019. So we don't have to go through this basis of switcheroony with the interfaces like I'm going to show you now, because if you install Windows Server 22 from the start and you actually select vMFXnet3, you're not going to have any problems. And I'll put that in the description as well, so you can look at Colin Westwater's article. So shout out there to you, Colin, and season greetings to you, my friend, in Scotland. You know, I wish I was with you. Certainly on Hogmanay, probably one of the best evenings of celebrating the new year in my life. And I absolutely love working up in Edinburgh, and I'd love to be back. And anyway, so okay, I digress. I'm going to go back. So what we can actually do, we can have a little look at the version that's supplied. So if we actually look at the driver, we can see that the driver is provided by Microsoft, and we can see the driver date is 10/07/2019, and the version is 1.8.17.0, which quickly, if we just go back to Colin's article, yeah, he does actually say with a fresh install of Windows Server 22, it came packaged with the, so kudos to you there, my friend. It's correct. Not that I doubted him for one moment. Okay, so let's carry on. So I'm doing exactly the same thing again. I'm going to click a typical installation this time, and I'm going to just basically say install. That's going to install all the drivers for me. That's going to copy all the new files. It's going to install its VM. Now you may have just noticed there in the background, did you quickly see that go on and off? Because that's where it was updating the driver. So we're going to have a little look at that in a minute. That was installing the video driver, that refresh there. It's probably going to ask for a restart. Yep, it's asking me for a restart. So I'm going to click finish, and I'm going to say yes, restart. So it does make me wonder why at the moment VMware has not actually changed their template to reflect that change in the vMXnet3 interface driver is now baked into the Windows 2022 installation media at long last. So we click next, and maybe I'll do another video very, very quickly on that as well. So if we're just going to go to device manager now, I'm going to get rid of that, and we have a little look at network adapters, and the one in particular we want to look at is this one here. And we want to look at the driver. So yeah, there you go. Driver now is provided by VMware. Driver date is much later, 12/11/2021, and we're now 1950. So that's been updated accordingly. So we're going to get rid of this driver now, and in exactly the same way I showed you before, where we're going to do the old pingaroony. And I'm going to run control panel. And we're just going to change adapter settings. Change adapter settings. I hit the wrong one. Change adapter settings. Okay, now I could just come in here and I could just right click and say disable, or I could do it down here. I could just go, well, let's just disable that device. Yeah, let's disable that device. we've still got internet connectivity, we've still got network connectivity. That's disabled. And then I'm going to go back to our virtual machine, and I want to make sure that I actually remove that device, remove, and probably, hang on, I'm just going to click cancel. So you can see here we've got one IP address now. So I'm going to go back, click edit settings. I'm going to make sure I delete the right interface, and I'm going to click remove device. Okay, and I'm going to go back to our server. Could take a while basically for that just to refresh. Still there. Interesting. Has it gone over here? Disabled. Did we remove the right one? Okay, it's still reconfiguring it here. Let's see, gone a little bit slow. I expected it to be much quicker than that. I'm not quite sure why it's having a moment to itself doing this. But rather than me waffle on, then I'll speed this up in post and I'll just bob off. Okay, just thought I'd come back to it. Well, not everything works first time. It's the very first time I've ever seen that in 24 years in removing an interface hot plug, to which, as you can see there, it actually basically turned around and said the operating system did not respond to a host remove request for device Ethernet in a timely manner, and I've no idea why that was. I don't know whether or not it's because we disabled it, but we disabled and we used that exact same method in Windows 11 and that worked. So I do wonder whether or not that something in the guest OS just hung up there, because all I've done, as you basically saw me, and I'll speed it all up in post, is that all I've done is just restart the guest OS. That's because I was talking to my brother about exhaust pipes and gearboxes and air mass filters the other day, explaining to him what OEM meant. Anyway, digressing again. So there we go. That's what I wanted to show you. That there we are with a VMFX Net3 interface adapter, which of course, the whole point of doing this is because it's 10 gig, and it actually basically gives us a lot more flexibility in configuration options. So it's a long one that. We'll shrink that down and we'll get that sped up in post to about 30 minutes. Anyway, so I hope you've enjoyed my talk about VMware tools as much as I have. And again, season greetings to you. We're 22 days before the big day. So come back soon, and I'm going to show you a couple of videos, or one video on how to install Linux, and we're going to use Ubuntu desktop server, and then we're going to do a couple of videos on VMware tools for Linux, the version shipped by VMware, and Open VMware tools as well. And then we'll start maybe looking at templates, deploying templates for Linux, deploying templates for Windows, and how they all work. So thanks so much again for watching. And as you can see, today I'm honouring EE with my rebirth shirt. Okay, so thanks very much for watching, and all the best, and goodbye.